Today I want to speak about a subject that has divided our nation for too long. A subject that tests not just our politics, but our faith, our conscience, and our humanity. That subject is immigration. Now before I begin, let me make something clear. This is not about defending crime or chaos at our borders. Every nation has a right and a duty to protect its sovereignty, its people, and its laws. The safety of our citizens is not negotiable. If someone enters this country to traffic drugs, to exploit others, or to commit acts of violence, then yes, they must face justice. They must be removed. But what I cannot and I will not support is the idea that every undocumented person, every mother, father, and child who came here in search of hope should be treated as if they were criminals. That is not conservative, that is not American, and that is certainly not Christian. The Republican Party has long prided itself as a party of faith, family, and freedom. It wraps itself in the Bible and waves a flag of moral order. But what good is faith without compassion? What good is quoting scripture while turning away from suffering? I have heard many Republican leaders justify the deportation of peaceful, hardworking families by quoting Romans 13, the verse that says, "Let every soul be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God." They use that passage as a moral shield, as if Jesus himself would have nodded in approval at children being ripped from their parents or mothers being dragged from their homes before sunrise. But my friends, context matters. Jesus also said in Matthew 25, "Whatever you did for the least of these, you did for me." He said in John 8, "Let he who is without sin cast the first stone." And in the Gospel of Mark, he warned us, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. In other words, laws exist to serve humanity, not to destroy it. When we begin to treat policy as more sacred than people, we've lost sight of both our faith and our freedom. For years, the Republican Party has campaigned on family values, yet it is the same party that defends policy separating children from their parents at the border. It is the same party that says, "We love the unborn child," but then abandons that same child once they cross into our country without papers. It is the same party that speaks of freedom, yet supports raids that instill terror in families who have done nothing wrong but work hard, pay taxes, and pray to live in peace. My question to them is simple. Where is your heart? Where is the mercy that Christ commanded? Where is the forgiveness, the grace, the compassion that defines Christianity itself? Because if your faith disappears the moment politics enter the room, it was never faith, it was performance. We need to tell the truth about undocumented immigrants in this country. They are not all gang members, they are not all drug dealers, and many of them are working jobs most Americans wouldn't take, in the fields, the kitchens, the construction sites, the nursing homes, and the factories. They are the backbone of industries that feed and sustain America. They are raising children who will grow up to serve in our military, to become our teachers, our doctors, our innovators. These are people who love America, even when America doesn't love them back. And yet, instead of being welcomed for their contribution, they live under constant fear of deportation, fear of being separated from the children, fear of being treated as less than human. That is not law enforcement. That is cruelty disguised as order. Now let's go back to that scripture that's so often used as justification, Romans 13. Paul wrote those words during a time of persecution under the Roman Empire, a government that crucified people for their beliefs. He wasn't saying that every law is holy. He was saying that believers should respect authority when authority acts justly. When authority becomes oppressive, when it destroys families, when it acts without mercy, it no longer represents God's will. The same Jesus who told us to respect the law also broke it when it conflicted with compassion. He healed on the Sabbath. He spoke to Samaritans. He touched the untouchables. If Christ himself challenged unjust laws to uphold love, then so should we. Our laws must reflect our values, and our values must reflect our humanity. It's time for a new approach, one that defends our borders but also defends our morals. Here's what I propose. Let's create the Second Chance Immigration Act, a national program that distinguishes between those who pose a threat and those who pose potential. Under this plan, any undocumented immigrant with no criminal record would be eligible for a protected pathway, a chance to register, work legally, and pursue citizenship after a period of good standing. Their children would be guaranteed access to education and protection from deportation. Families will no longer live in fear of being separated. Those with criminal histories involving violence, trafficking, or repeat offenses will still face removal, as they should, but we would no longer treat every undocumented soul as a statistic in a political debate. We would treat them as people, because when law and compassion walk hand in hand, justice prevails. Some argue that compassion costs too much, but I say cruelty costs more. When we deport working families, we remove taxpayers, consumers, and contributors. We weaken the very communities that depend on their labor. When children are torn from their parents, they don't just lose their families, they lose their future. And we as a nation lose the moral high ground that has long defined us. History will not judge us by the walls we built, but by the bridges we refuse to build. The Republican Party claims to be the party of business, then it should understand this. Immigration is not a burden, it is an investment. The dreamers, the workers, the families seeking a better life, they are not our problem. They are our promise. I want to speak directly to my Christian brothers and sisters who defend these harsh policies. Ask yourself, when you see a child cry because their mother has been taken, does your heart move or has it hardened? Do you truly believe that Jesus, who welcomed strangers and healed the broken, would turn away from a father working 3 jobs to feed his family simply because his papers aren't in order? If your version of Christianity justifies pain, then it is not Christianity. It's nationalism dressed in religion. God did not build nations to worship borders. He built people to serve one another. And if America is truly a nation under God, then we must be a nation guided by mercy. And to my Republican friends, I don't question your love for America, but I do question your understanding of justice, because justice without empathy is tyranny. It's time to stop using fear to win elections. It's time to stop turning human beings into talking points. It's time to remember that immigration isn't about policy, it's about people. Yes, secure the borders. Yes, remove those who endanger our nation, but stop punishing those who only seek to be part of it. Stop calling yourselves a party of faith while ignoring the cries of the faithful. Stop preaching morality while practicing indifference. This is your chance to lead, not with pride, but with purpose. Not with rhetoric, but with righteousness. The time has come for a new moral contract, one rooted in the belief that every life has value, and that mercy is not weakness, but strength. We must build an immigration system that reflects the best of who we are. A nation of laws, yes, but also a nation of grace. We can protect our borders without hardening our hearts. We can enforce our laws without losing our souls. Let us remember that America was not built by those who had everything, but by those who had nothing but a dream. And that dream, that flame, that still burns in the hearts of millions who believe in this country, even when this country forgets to believe in them. So today I ask, and especially the Republican Party, to rediscover its humanity, to look beyond the walls and into the faces of the people who clean our schools, harvest our food, build our homes, and love this country like it's their own, because for many of them, it is. We are a nation of immigrants, built by grace and guided by God. Let us not betray either. Let us be the generation that chooses faith over fear, compassion over cruelty, and justice over judgment. Because at the end of the day, no matter where someone was born, we are all children of the same Creator, and His law is love.